Everyone is welcome here. For all of you that have joined us, we're glad to have you with us. This is a testimony meeting. It's an informal meeting, so everyone who has something to share should feel free to do so. And before we get into the testimonies, I'd like to read from the church manual the section entitled Testimonials. Glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. St. Paul. Testimony in regard to the healing of the sick is highly important. More than a mere rehearsal of blessings, it scales the pinnacle of praise and illustrates and the demonstration of Christ, who healeth all thy diseases. Psalms. This testimony, however, shall not include a description of synonyms or of suffering, though the generic name of the disease may be indicated. Now, those of you who are on the teleconference, when you're ready to give your testimony, first make sure there's no noise where you are, otherwise we'll hear it. And then press *1 on your telephone, and then listen for the acknowledgement message that your hand is raised. That lets us know that you're ready. And when we're ready here, we will call on you. And for everyone who will share testimony tonight, please keep your remarks within 4 minutes so that everyone will have a chance to share their offering. And now I'd like to open the meeting to Testimonies of Healing through Christian Science. The Moores from Georgia, go ahead.
I wanted to give my gratitude for the gift of Christian Science that was given so freely to me when I came to this church by the 2 practitioners that I've worked with and all the other people I've come in contact with. Without this free giving that I have received, I really don't know where I would be. I can tell you the results of this have been wonderful in my life. I have experienced healing, some physical healings of chronic headaches, of allergies. These are no longer concerns. It has helped me with my relations with people, my wife, my daughter, my coworkers. Frankly, I'm alive now, and I'll never be able to repay this back to those people, but I can certainly give my gratitude tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. I would like to express my gratitude this evening for our Sunday service. It is so wonderful and such a healing service. And this past Sunday, it was just absolutely outstanding. The solo, it was the duet, I suppose you'd say, of the Amazing Grace just was unspeakable. It was absolutely wonderful. I hope that the people there make sure that the musicians do hear about the effect that this has on these audiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Janet.
Okay, Janet from Georgia, go ahead.
Hello. My husband and I recently took a road trip with friends, and as we were heading back home to Atlanta, we decided to stop, for lunch. And as we left the restaurant, I didn't realize that there was a 1-foot drop to the parking lot. And I fell off the curb onto the parking lot. My body twisted, and as I hit the pavement, I felt myself bounce. And I heard my friends calling me, and my husband came running and was kneeling over me, repeating over and over my name. I I really had no idea what had happened. I looked at my husband's face, and I saw there was a lot of concern there. And I sat up and I grabbed his arm, and I heard myself saying emphatically, I am all right. I am all right. I got up and walked to the car, and I felt my head was aching a little bit, and I asked myself if I hit my head. And as soon as I asked that question, it was as if a switch had turned the pain off completely. It was totally gone. So I thought, well, I guess I didn't hit my head. And a few hours or so later, as we were going on down the road before this incident, I was thinking about God, and this thought came to me so strongly before this incident took place, that God is my life. God is life. God is my life. God is the only life. And I repeated that a number of times, and I just felt such joy, calm, and peace when that came to me, and I felt surrounded by love. I couldn't help but just smile, and this may sound strange, but I felt such a warmth, a glowing all over me. I know now, and I knew shortly after the incident, that this statement was my angel thought, and it absolutely protected me. As I was sitting in the car as we headed home, another thought came to me, a statement which I have read that is attributed to Mrs. Eddy. It says, we are all in our orbit, and we can never fall out. This was such a great comfort to me. I knew I had never really left God's presence. But at this point, I was starting to struggle with why this happened. Not that I was injured or felt injured or had any pain or what might happen the next day, but that what did I not do? What did I not think correctly, or what did I do that caused this? And I soon realized that that was not a thought that I was going to entertain. About 3 hours later, we stopped for a restroom break, and I got out of the car with no problem. I walked normally there and back, and on my knee I noticed 2 tiny little scrapes, and I did not have one bruise on my body. My friends couldn't believe my condition was so perfect. They kept saying it was a miracle. And my husband told me later that when this happened, he thought in his mind, he was thinking, I need to find the closest hospital. I need to find a hotel, because he thought for a second that that's where we were headed. He said, I fell on and hit all the places that doctors claim were the most critical: head, shoulder, arm, hip, and leg. I'm just so grateful for this testimony so that I can just show forth God. I just love glorifying God and to show his loving care, not just for me at that particular time, but this care is for all of us. He cares for every one of us. I recently read this in the Bible, that we are, every one of us is also his offspring. He's protecting and loving all of us right now. I am so grateful to God and Mrs. Eddy, and grateful to be a student of Christian Science, and thank you all for the readings tonight and for Plainfield teaching Mrs. Eddy's true Christian Science. Thank you.
Thank you. Elsie from Alabama, go ahead.
Thank you. I had a healing last Wednesday, and it was after the meeting, and I just couldn't wait to tell you. I believe with all my heart it was the meeting itself that helped me. Prior to the meeting, I had been cleaning up, and I reached up to put something in the cabinet, and when I reached up, I couldn't raise my hand. It just went so far, and a terrible pain went through all the way down my arm. First thing I said was, this isn't real. I won't accept it. And then the thought came to me to go to the hymn number 51, which my mother used to sing to us all the time. And the second verse reads, God could not make imperfect man, his model infinite. Unhallowed thought he could not plan, love's work, and love must fit. Life, truth, and love the pattern make. Christ is the perfect air. The clouds of sense roll back and show the form divinely fair. And I stayed with that until the meeting started. And I listened to all the wonderful readings, the healing testimonies, and I was thinking that really they were so good. And after the meeting, I went back into the kitchen and I thought I better clean up in here if I can. And all of a sudden I realized my arm was unlimited and the pain was gone. And I know that healing came from that wonderful meeting last week. And I just want to thank everyone that participated in it. And thank God for Plainfield. And thank you for those wonderful readings tonight.
Thank you. Connie from Texas, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to express gratitude for our roundtables. They've always been good, but lately they've been better. The genius of Plainfield is its teaching, I think. And for 20 years after I went through class, I would call up other teachers and say, you know, I never learned anything in class and I want to be taught again. Of course, they wouldn't do it. And I just think, well, they give you that 2-week course and then once a year a little bit more. And it was just, if it was truth, well, it wasn't enough. And now I have to laugh. Plainfield is pouring forth such a torrent of teaching that you just can't help but be satisfied. It's just a wonderful thing. I want to express gratitude that we've been given reading assignments and kind of up the ante on what's expected of us. And for all the preparation that our teacher puts into this, it must be quite a lot. Anyway, I'm so grateful for our roundtables and all the wonderful testimonies, and to Tony and Florence for their reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the beautiful reading. I wanted to express my gratitude this evening for a healing that I had last week. I had called a practitioner from Plainfield, and we had been talking about some things, and during the conversation I mentioned to her that my back was hurting. And then she gave me some ideas. I don't remember what they were, but very firm and comforting. And it was probably a matter of minutes after I hung up and the pain had completely lifted. I was very grateful for that instantaneous healing. It was just very beautiful. And I work at a job that requires me to be very active. And so it was quite a blessing. I really want to just express this testimony tonight because of my appreciation for the amazing practitioner support at Plainfield and, of course, all the wonderful things that are going on. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Before I was led to my career as a correction officer, I was suffering from shyness and a debilitating fear of the outside world. The first day I walked into a maximum security prison, I was very much a stranger in a strange land. I did the only thing I knew to do. I learned to assimilate into the environment in order to effectively and safely conduct my duties. I learned to speak the language and relate to their lives. I met the challenge with the authority that came with wearing the uniform. Like some of the children of Israel, I married into the city. I thought I had done well for myself. I eventually found it more and more difficult to hold on to my integrity. I no longer felt comfortable in my job. I had not overcome anything. I just renamed it personal authority and began to hate going to work. I was truly a house divided against itself. I had fought error with error, and with that, the fear began to resurface. After being led here to study Christian Science, I once again saw myself as a stranger in a strange land. Now I'm learning what it means and what it takes to reach the promised land. I'm learning to rebuke the fears I'm challenged with the truth. With the spiritual enlightenment I have gained here, the power I believed that these fears had over me is fading away and being replaced by trust in the Father, divine principle, faith, moral courage, and strength in spirit, divine love and truth. I am so grateful for everything I've been given from this science that Mary Baker Eddy has, with God's grace written down for us all. I am grateful to my practitioner, who continues to pray on my behalf and guides me upward out of the stricken state, and for the lessons that help me to understand God correctly and without fear give these testimonies of His healing power. Thank you.
Thank you. Day from Maryland, go ahead.
Thank you. I recently had some challenges with feeling unexplained sadness and being overwhelmed by thoughts of what I felt I needed to do in both the near and far future. And though I received much needed and appreciated help from my practitioner and support from my mother, what meant the most to me is my realization that I need to be much more grateful each day, and that I must watch that nothing takes away my gratitude. There's always something to be grateful for, and spending more time thanking God for what He's doing and guarding my gratitude leaves little room for sadness, worry, doubt, fear, or any other distractions. I'm thankful for the opportunity to find new ways to express my gratitude and for all of the challenges that lead me to see things in a new light. I'm thankful for the opportunity to share at tonight's meeting, and thank you so much, Tony and Florence, for your inspiring reading.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Oh, good evening. Thank you so much. I have so much I'm grateful for, but I'll just say a few things. I had a very nice, beautiful healing last Saturday. I was feeling quite poorly, and I didn't want to push through it humanly, but I didn't want to go to bed. So I called a practitioner from Plainfield for help, and I was a little nervous about that, to do it on a weekend, but it was wonderful. I was told to study pages 390 to 393 in Science and Health, and I did so. And I was sitting in my rocker while I did this, and I had things underlined on the pages and a few things starred, but I had never actually studied the pages, those 4 pages, so intently, and I was able to do it. It was just wonderful. By the, I would say, middle of the afternoon, all the symptoms I had were gone, and I went to have pizza with my teacher friends, like we usually do on Saturday evening. This was astounding to me, and it was so beautiful, and I was so grateful. The other thing I wanted to thank you for are the lesson sermons. I used to try to read the Boston lessons, and I would feel so guilty that I didn't seem to understand, and it was just it was a chore. These lesson sermons are so beautiful and so in-depth. I thank you, Plainfield, and all of you, all of the individuals who do so much. I am very grateful, and have a good night.
Thank you.
I woke up this morning so happy, and it didn't take long to appreciate that this is something well beyond human power that made that possible. Not long ago, I was stuck in a life that left me feeling mostly empty. I'd gotten to the point that the only thing getting me out of bed was seeing my kids every other weekend. Then I began to feel that my influence in their life was actually bad for them, and that was really it for me. Without that, I could see no path forward or reason to find one. God had a path, though, and once I let go of my pride and asked Him for help, I was on that path immediately. Now, 17 months later, I wake up happy. I have purpose and joy and gratitude. I'm so blessed to be a part of this church and its mission. This is not to say there are no trials in my life, but because I vividly remember that time when everything felt hopeless, I can now say, this seems difficult, but I know God is with me. I may not see the answer, but He does. He saw a way out of the darkness, so this is just no big deal at all. For all those out there who have no hope, this church works tirelessly to bring the only thing that will give hope, and that is truth. How could I be even a small part of this and not wake up happy? I'm so grateful to have this opportunity and this constant stream of blessings. I also like to add how grateful I am to all of our members doing this work. So many all over the world are doing their part, and that is incredibly inspiring. We had a laugh the other day about how, from a human sense, we have such an unlikely mix of people, but that it is utter proof that God is the only cause, because how else could this happen? Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. In October, I attended a fundraising event to benefit one of our local pet rescue groups, and it was called Wagoween because dog owners were invited to dress up their dogs in costumes and take them downtown to go trick-or-treating for dog biscuits at all the downtown merchants, and all the money raised was to go to support these charitable pet organizations. I decided to take my dog Pebbles to the event since she herself was also a rescue dog, and it was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful day with beautiful fall temperatures, and I located her pumpkin costume and dressed her up, and we headed downtown along with my daughter and my mother. I paid the registration fee and got her trick-or-treat bag, and we started down the street and stopping at the shop to get biscuits. And Pebbles seemed to be enjoying the experience, being outside, walking around, but after about 2 blocks, I noticed she started slowing down on her walk and appeared to be a bit disoriented. So we decided to cut it short and headed back to the car. When we arrived at the car, I helped her jump up into the passenger seat and removed her costume and collar so she could lay down comfortably. But on the drive back home, the picture that mortal mind and error tried to present was not a good one in terms of her condition. So as I looked at her laying limp on the seat next to me with her eyes closed, I held steadfastly to knowing that she was being cradled in God's love and as an idea and reflection of God, too, just as we all are, and can never be separated even for a second from that ever-present love and life. And fear tried to creep into my thinking, and the thought to stop at the emergency vet clinic that I was just about to pass along the road also came to me, but I rejected that thought and the fear that tried to take hold of my consciousness. I prayed to God to help me to hold steadfastly to the truth about Pebbles and her perfect being. Almost immediately, she went from what appeared to be a very lethargic state to her jumping up in her car seat, alert, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and ready for action with no sign of her former false image of her. And I just wanted to say that I'm most grateful for having access to this truth, which was uncovered by Mary Baker Eddy and brought to light for us all. It's an ever-present daily help in our times of need, and I thank you for tonight's reading.
Thank you. Anita from Oregon, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Earlier this evening, I was thinking about what I might testify about, and the quote came to me. I think it probably was from Shakespeare. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. And how do I love this church? Where do I begin? There are so many different ways, and every testifier this evening has already said what I should be saying. I love so much about it. The lessons, sermons, are wonderful. They are so far superior to anything that came out of Boston, and they're so easily understood. And all of the literature that we have that is denied other churches, it's all wonderful. And I also wanted to comment on the rendition of, I should have written this down. Amazing Grace last Sunday was absolutely the most beautiful I've ever heard on that song. I am so grateful for everything that's going on in this church, for what I'm learning here, and I'm just beginning. I have so much more to have to do, but I'm going to get there. Yep.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say how grateful I am to be here tonight, and the selection of hymns tonight certainly were right in line with the love that's in this place. I recently had to go to a hospital for several days, and I was completely loved and comforted by each and every member here in this church. When they say we're the family of God, it's true here. People just willing to do anything to help. And the support of my practitioner was so overwhelming at times. It was beyond love. It was truly, you could feel the caring and the sincerity, and her knowing the perfection of me. She had told me, remember, perfect God, perfect man, perfect universe, and you are that man. You're not made of blood, bones, or skin. You are spiritual, as God made you. And hold to that, which I did, 24/7. And because I was in a very strange environment for me. And every evening she would call and tell me God's legions of angels were round about me, protecting me. And his loving arms were around me, and nothing could harm me. And it gave me such a feeling of peace that I was able to sleep through every night in total peace. I can't express enough the love that I felt and continue to feel from each and every person here and the practitioner. And I just know that, I was brought here a long time ago, and I never knew why. Well, this has become clearer and clearer, especially now, and it's the love that's here, and the love it's our job to express. Thank you.
Thank you. I had an experience, this was some time ago, but it shows how clear it is that when you go through troublesome times, there is a blessing in them. And when you come out the other end, you're a changed person for the better. And this happened to me one time when it seemed like there was a few days there I was like under a curse. I was in an accident like every day. And it was really starting to make me very sad and sorrowful. And I remember talking to a practitioner about it, and he told me repeatedly, "You got to get the blessing from this." And that, indeed, I most certainly did need to do. And my practitioner prayed, and I kept looking for that blessing, working as best I could. But I remember there was a Wednesday evening meeting here in this church, and our teacher gave a testimony about hymn number 350. And it starts, "Through the love of God our Savior, all will be well." And that hymn goes on from there. This is a very strong and powerful hymn. Strong, positive, good, and it's all about God's love for his man and his all power. But the thing that struck me the most was this one phrase, "Faith can sing through days of sorrow. All must be well." And when I heard that, I knew that in this time that I was going through, I needed to do more singing and less sighing, and this would open the door for that blessing. And indeed it did. After that Wednesday evening meeting we had, this prone to get into an accident stopped completely. And this was a number of years ago, and it never came back that whole time. So the lesson for me was, doesn't matter how tough things are, God is right there by you. Principle is still operating, and we can sing through these times and get the blessing from them and be all the better afterwards when you get through and find out that God has never left us. He's always there for each and every one of us, all the time.
I have a few things to read tonight. First from Pennsylvania. My heart is overflowing with gratitude for the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. It is like coming home, finding refuge with God. There is much work to be done, and with all of you, I can face it and just do it. With love. And then this from Argentina. The person in Argentina who translates our lessons into Spanish, the audio, etc., she was being thanked, and her reply was, "It is a great pleasure for me to work for science. And I think that thanks to the work I do for the Plainfield Christian Science Church, it has taken root in my absolute trust in God, to the point where I decided with my husband to build a study. It will take a while as there are many technical and legal issues, and we formalize in order to do this. But my joy is huge, and my expectation to study and serve God continuously. Very grateful to all of you." On the carousel on our website homepage this week is an article featured called "Your Background" by Una Willard. And it's an article that has meant a lot to me. It's a very simple article, but very helpful. And she starts out by saying, "Does the argument come to you that you didn't come from a good family or have the same opportunities as someone else? Stand on the fact that you came forth from God, that your background is God Himself." I guess we can all say our background might be good, might be bad, might be a mixture. But to know, as we do in science, that our background is God and that we came from Him, it's so healing, it's so liberating. It certainly handles any beliefs of heredity, because all that we can have is our inheritance from God. There was a story, a fable once told about an infant prince who gets stolen by gypsies. And he's raised by these gypsies, and then years later he finds out that he is actually a prince. And he goes home and meets his father, who is a king, and his mother, who is a queen. And so it is with us. Our real parent, Father, Mother, God, we are the sons and daughters of the King with that rightful inheritance. In Science and Health, Mrs. Eddy says, in science, man is the offspring of spirit. The beautiful, the good, and the pure constitute his ancestry. The beautiful, the good, and the pure. I can live with that. And then I think it's so beautiful too, because in the first edition, Mrs. Eddy says, the beautiful, good, and pure are his ancestors. We have a tremendous, loving Father who cares for each and every one of us. And as we open our hearts to him and give of ourselves, we find a true purpose, true worth in our life, a peace, a joy, a love that is just unspeakable. I'm so grateful tonight for those wonderful testimonies, those wonderful, beautiful readings. Thank you so much. Done beautifully. So grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you.